Okay, so I will start with an acknowledgement of country. So let me just share screen. Okay, so welcome everybody. So today we have a wonderful webinar called the NENA Youth Hub's Purpose Lab. And I would like to first acknowledge country. So if we could all ground ourselves, think of the place that we are lucky enough to live and work on and play on, and acknowledge that traditional owners of these lands have been looking after country for millennia. I'd like to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise that there is still so much work to be done in ending colonisation and just healing country. So these pictures, this is, I live on Whadjuk Noongar country, and these are the pictures of Makuru, which is the season of June and July, which is the wettest season of the year. And so I just wanted to share that with you all, but just thinking about the land that you're on and paying those respects to elders. So I will also just share a little bit about the New Economy Network of Australia. If you don't know about it already, maybe you're new to the organisation. So my name is Rhiannon and I work in the coordinating hub of NENA alongside Michelle Maloney. And I'm also part of the Youth Hub, which we'll talk about in a second. So the New Economy Network is a network of organisations and individuals. We're working to create an ecologically healthy and socially just society by transforming the economic system. So the way we do that, people are connected from across Australia to collaborate, share ideas, and really look at changing the economic system. So we do have national webinars like this one. We also have the NENA 2021 annual conference coming up in November, which is very exciting. And proposals will be due at the 1st of August. So please do check out our website. If you're interested in connecting, we'll put that in the chat shortly. So just very quickly, I am part of the Youth Hub as a relatively young person who feels very fortunate to have stumbled across NENA last year. I think it's important for those of us in the next generations to connect in a space like this in order to share ideas, initiatives, find ways to collaborate to build a different system and a better world. So if you would like to join the NENA Youth Hub, please email us and I'll put that in the chat a little later as well. So NENA also runs a course with Griffith University we've been doing for the past 2 years, and Carolyn Tate, one of our speakers today, completed the course last year. It's called Building a Wellbeing Economy course, and she's very keen to bring NENA to young people. So I'm going to introduce Carolyn now. So Carolyn Tate is a purpose educator and author of The Purpose Project. She spent many years in banking and marketing before becoming a professional writer and teacher specialising in purpose. So over the past 10 years, she's taught more than 10,000 people on the power of purpose and how to use story to bring it to life. She's using her expertise around towards the world of education and supporting young people to find their purpose and uncover their potential for their working life. So the webinar that we're about to experience is one lesson of a term-long course called Purpose Labs that Carolyn has created for schools. So it is aimed at youth between 13 to 21, but particularly for those students who are facing decisions around future subjects, study and work choices. The webinar will be just 1 hour, but Carolyn is inviting those who want to stay on for a further Q&A discussion for 30 minutes afterwards. So if you could please also just, before Carolyn kicks off, if you could put your introductions into the chat. So we'd love to know what country you're on today, whether you're here as an educator, a student or a parent, or maybe a mentor, and also like, what does purpose mean to you? So maybe one word about what purpose means to you. So I'd love to get those in the chat so we can have an idea of why you're here today. Great, thanks everyone, and I'll pass over to Carolyn.
Wow, thank you so much for the introduction, Rhiannon, and the invitation, Michelle, to host this webinar for NENA. I am a member of NENA and I've been involved in, as Rhiannon said, the Building a Wellbeing course last year. And I'm really thankful to be invited to share what I know about purpose and how I might be able to talk about ideas around how we can help young people find their purpose. As Rihanna mentioned, there will be a bit of a task. If you've got pens, pencils, notepads, that would be really great. I'd love it if you have that available. Also, I'm going to be doing a door prize at the end. So if you are here to the end, we'll be putting your name in a drawer. And most importantly, I need to acknowledge that I'm actually calling from the land of the Wurundjeri people down here in Melbourne, about to go into another week of lockdown down here. So if anyone's here from Melbourne or New South Wales for that matter, Victoria or New South Wales, my heart goes out to you all. And what a perfect time to think about purpose while you're in lockdown. As Rhiannon said, we will do a Q&A chat at the end of the hour to talk a little bit more about purpose in young people and purpose labs. I know that we have got some young people here. We've got teachers, we've got educators, and also parents as well. So I'm really grateful to have everybody here, and thank you so much. Where to start? So I'm going to start with a story. About 10 years ago, a 16-year-old Dutch boy was swimming in the Greek islands, and off to the distance, he noticed these weird jellyfish-like things. On closer inspection, he realized that they were actually plastic bags, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them. And I imagine this young man came home that night filled with grief and spending night after night wondering how he could actually look after the beautiful ocean that he loves so much. Now, 10 years later, Boyan has now launched something called the Ocean Cleanup. I'm not sure if many of you have heard about it, but it's become very successful with many, many volunteers and employees, being funded by many big corporations. And he now has a mission to clean up 90% of the ocean's plastics. So what's interesting to me about that story is that Boyan found his pain point, which has actually led to him finding his purpose. And I always say that pain actually does lead to finding purpose. And what he did was he combined his love of technology with his love for the passion for the ocean, and he brought something together to help solve such a wicked world problem. Now imagine Boyan had people in his life that asked him different questions than the standard question that many of us might ask young people. And that is, what do you want to do when you leave school? What do you want to be? And I imagine that he had mentors and people around him that asked him questions like, what do you love? What does the world need? How can we help you fulfill that, that purpose to bring technology and your passion for the ocean together? So what I'll just do now is I'll share my screen, and I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to Purpose Labs and how we can empower young people like Boyan to find their purpose and uncover their potential and explore new possibilities. We'll be doing a few things. Firstly, we'll be, I don't know why my slides aren't working. I might have to, there we are, they're working now. So firstly, I'm going to introduce the concept of purpose, what it is, why we as humans need it, not just young people, but older people as well, of all generations. I'm going to talk to you about the Ikigai Model, which is a Japanese word which means reason for being. And we're going to go through that model, and I'm going to show you how you might be able to use it in order to find and articulate your purpose. And then I'm going to, and then we'll complete an activity. So I'll get you to have a look at the Ikigai model and then do a little activity around it. And then after we've done that, as Rhiannon mentioned, we'll do an optional Purpose Lab Q&A discussion. As Rhiannon said, that this class is really just one small part of an 8-week course to give you a taste test of purpose and Ikigai. And one thing I didn't mention is that I am going to invite, I want to get back to all the people here. We're going to invite Talia Sadler, who is a student, to share from her experiences about what she has done in terms of finding her purpose. I first met Talia when she was 12, she's now 17, and she's done some amazing things. So rather than hear all about me, we're actually going to have a young person who has pursued her purpose to share her story. So what is purpose, and how do we find it? I'm going to share again. So in 2017, I was really fortunate to go to America, and I visited Professor William Damon, and he wrote a book called The Path to Purpose. Now, this was the book that inspired me to write the Purpose Project, and he is a professor at the Center for Adolescence at Stanford University, and that center itself is purely dedicated to researching purpose in young people. I was fortunate enough to share some of the work I've been doing around purpose with his faculty there. And the book, the reason why I love the book is there's a lot of research, but also there's some really amazing questions in the back of the book, which would help any of us, whether we're parents or teachers or educators, to actually ask students really powerful questions to help them articulate their purpose. So I highly recommend you getting that book. We could probably post that in the chat, or we could send it out as an email afterwards. In the book, he says that only 1 in 5 young people between the age of 12 and about 24 actually have a clear idea of what they want to do as they become an adult. And I guess that's also supported in the statistics around youth. 1 in 5 students are dropping out of university after their first year. So we have quite a high dropout rate from university, which would indicate that perhaps people haven't got, young people don't have a clear sense of what it is they want to do. In the book, he made this statement. He said that what's too often missing, but not altogether absent, but evident in a minority of today's youth, is the kind of wholehearted dedication to an activity or interest that stems from a serious purpose, a purpose that can give meaning and direction to life. The definition that William Damon gives around what purpose actually is, he says it's a forward-looking intention to accomplish a goal that is meaningful to the self and consequential for the world beyond the self. So there's actually 3 key elements in it. It's about accomplishing a goal, so it's about taking action. It's something that is meaningful to the self, which means it makes use of our talents, our skills, and those things that we have experience and knowledge in. He says it's also of consequence to the world beyond the self. So it's actually making a contribution to your school, your community, to other people or the environment. One of the things he talks about in the book, and certainly what I've researched and been looking at as well, is that purpose is really important for a number of reasons. The first is that it mitigates anxiety. I asked my son some time ago about what makes young people anxious, and he said the 3 main things were social media. The second thing is the uncertainty about what to choose for future studies and future job prospects, so having to make a single-minded choice. And the third thing he said was anxiety around climate change and what's happening in the world. And I think that most of us as older people, if we're talking to young people, we'd be hearing those same things. And anxiety is really, really quite a problem these days. So purpose helps with anxiety. It also helps with resilience. There's a lot of talk in the world of education about how do we help young people become more resilient. And it's proven that if you actually have a sense of purpose, you're going to actually be more resilient. It's something to return to when setbacks happen and things like pandemics and things like we're going through at the moment. It's proven to help young people sleep better, improve their mental health. It improves their social connections, and it also helps them feel good because they're actually making a difference in the world. There's 3 truths that I've learned about purpose. And the first one is that we don't find our purpose, we build it. And I think that myth that we go off to Tibet, sit on a mountain, having given up all our worldly goods, and all of a sudden we'll be enlightened and our purpose will just like drop inside, is probably not true. Is that instead what we do is we help people, or we actually we find our purpose by doing, by building, by taking on a project, by experimenting. So that's the first thing I'd like to say, is that we don't find our purpose, we actually build it. And we do that through experiments and through projects and through testing and so on. The second myth I want to bust is that we actually don't, we can have more than one purpose. I have 3. My first is to be a wicked role model to my son. My second is to write books that truly matter. And the third is to bring purpose to life in people and young people. And so that together we can build a better world. And I have stories that I share around each of those 3 purposes, which I won't share right now, but we can have more than one. And I think that we should take the pressure off to kind of have one single-minded goal, and that we can have many. The third thing is that our purpose isn't set in stone. I like to say, my friend told me this lovely saying she heard from another friend of hers, that when we make a decision, it's not a tattoo. It's actually, we can reverse it, it will change, and the same with purpose. A purpose at 16 would be different at 26 or at 36, 46, and so on. And it actually changes depending on our life circumstances. If you have young children, it would be different if you're an empty nester, for example. So we need to be flexible and allow for it to change. So they're the 3 kind of myths I think I need to bust. The first is that we don't find it, that we build it. The second is that we can actually have more than one. And the third is that it's not set in stone, and that it will change as life changes around us. So where is purpose found? I'm going to share my screen again to give you an idea of the Ikigai model, and it is said Ikigai. It's a model that I use and I've written about in my book. And Ikigai is actually a Japanese word, and it means reason for being. And the Japanese believe that a wholehearted life will include a lengthy exploration of all 4 of these circles. So what are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for? So many of us, I think, as we're leaving school and at school, we're really taught to focus very much on what we're good at. So we'll do strengths tests, we'll do all the tests to identify what our talents and our skills and our strengths are. And then we'll potentially be directed towards creating a vocation or a job that we can be paid for that makes most of what we're good at. So many of us can be put into more of a profession where we're focusing on our strengths and talents and what we can be paid for. Now, as I went to school, I was really good at maths, and I became an accidental banker for 20 years as a result of that. I didn't actually like numbers or maths that much. I actually probably enjoyed English and writing much more, and I didn't actually work out what I loved until 20 years later, and that was very accidental. I became a writer. But what I actually learned was that I could have been a banker and a writer. I didn't actually need to leave my job to pursue my passion. And I could have eventually became a writer and even brought my banking and writing careers together. So the idea of focusing on what I love wasn't really something that I grew up with, but I think that is changing today with young people, thankfully. So what you love is really all about your passions, your interests, the things that light you up. It's about your values and your beliefs. So if we can help our young people tap into what they really love and ask them the right questions, we can actually connect them to what they're good at. So what you love and what you're good at won't actually be very often the same thing. And what we love can be diminished over time in the focus of being really focused on what we're good at and what we can be paid for. And then the other circle of what does the world need? And I often ask this question of anyone, adults and young people, if there's one thing you could fix in the world, what would it be? And it might not be something in the world, it might be something in your family, it might be your local community, it might be your school, it might be the workplace where you're currently at. So the question is, what is the one thing that you would like to fix? Now, what often happens for most of us is that we, as I said, do get caught in the profession. We get focused on what we're good at, we get stuck in the what can we be paid for, and then over time we lose our centering in what we love and what the world needs. And I firmly believe that we can actually bring all four of those circles into our work, no matter where you work, no matter what your job, no matter what your role. And my passion and purpose is to actually ask people the questions that can help them tap into all of those four circles. It'd be interesting in the chat room now, and we're going to talk to Talia now, to just type in the chat room what circles you think you're playing in right now. And I'll stop sharing. Actually, you might want to do a screenshot of that if you haven't got this model, or draw it while it's up there, and then I'll bring Talia on to talk about it as well. So take a screenshot if you can, draw the model. We might even be able to email it to people after this session. How do we tell, Rhiannon, whether people have actually got the model in? I can't be on full screen and actually in the chat room, so I'm going to escape and go back to the chat room.
We've got a few people putting their ideas in the chat, which is great. So where they are in the intersection of one or more circles.
Fantastic. So keep posting away if you like. But before, what I'd like to do now is actually introduce you to Talia. And Talia is a wonderful young woman that I met when, Talia, you're on mute.
Hello.
Hi. So I met Talia when she was 12 and at a student at Templestowe College, and she participated in a course that we ran called Talk on Purpose. And there were 13 students that over 3 days were taught about purpose, and then they actually ended up doing a 3-minute TED-like talk live on stage. To their parents and to the school teachers and to their peers, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I actually reached out to the students that that did this course to reconnect, to see their before and after, you know, how have they progressed since we did that course all those years ago. So I thought I'd invite Talia on and ask her to share her story about purpose, and just tell me a little bit about your experience, Talia, from that course and what it was all about.
Well, I really enjoyed the course. I've always been passionate about leadership and about public speaking, and so I was really excited at the idea to do this course. And for me, I found it really engaging, but also really fast-paced. I feel like we could have touched on more if we'd had longer to brainstorm and discuss what our passions were and what our purposes are. But I really enjoyed it. The lessons about being an engaging and professional public speaker were really interesting, and that's what I thought I'd signed up for. However, it was the introduction and the use of the Ikigai model that has stuck with me until now. And I keep referring to it in my head, and it's been a really useful tool to use throughout high school and throughout my education.
Would you like to share? Shall I share it so that people can have a look at it? I'll do that now.
Yeah, so when I was doing the talk, I wanted to talk about animal rights, but I decided to focus on leadership because there are already 3 students talking about animal rights and the environment. I didn't want the audience to tune out because that's a really big problem in our in animal rights and the environment. So yeah, so this is my Ikigai model that I recreated, the one that I did in year 8. And so these are my passions, and the highlighted ones are kind of the path that I'm following with my course and my future career, so I'm currently doing a course in wildlife and conservation biology, and I'm going to work in conservation and education, and because that's my purpose. That's how I've identified my little niche in society. Yeah, and so by reflecting upon this model, I've been able to find that role for myself.
Talia, if anyone has questions of Talia, can you pop them in the chat room as well? Talia, why do you think it's important for young people to find their purpose?
I think that finding purpose today is really important, and having your purpose is really important for mental health, and it can provide that drive and enthusiasm that's really important for young people. So not only does it help with mental health and anxiety and give you that that resource to draw upon for something to reflect on, it also can give you confidence. And when you're stuck at home in a room, having something that you know you're interested in and can go forth and do is really important, which currently in COVID, we're all a bit stuck in our bubbles, and so it's good to be able to have a purpose that's bigger than yourself to reflect upon. And yeah, as Carolyn spoke about her son talking about how the youth of today have an anxiety, especially about the climate, I totally relate to that. And I know so many people in my course and in my circles that definitely feel that way. And so my purpose directly kind of combats that feeling of helplessness, because I know I'm devoting myself to something, like I'm doing what I can to fix it, and that's an empowering feeling. And yeah, I think feeling that empowerment can be really special and important. Yep.
Are there any questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay, we'll keep going then. Talia, you're at a very progressive school, Templestowe College, with a very progressive principal. Do you want to just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I got to work with Peter Hutton a lot throughout years 7 and 8 because of my focus in leadership, and I was on every committee that the school had to offer. And so I ended up working with the print team a lot. He was extremely driven. And I believe that's because he knew what his purpose was. And by pinpointing that goal, he could arrange his life to fit around it. And his purpose was to create I'm going to kind of paraphrase from the school's vision at the time, because it was really well worded. It was to create an educational environment and community where students could follow their passions while feeling safe and included and interested in their schooling, which is 13 years of their life. And that it's really important that people feel interested in what they're going to do and spending their whole lives doing. And he really knew his purpose, and he spoke to us about his purpose and why he was creating this environment for us. And that was really important that he showed us that. Yeah.
And the school's purpose or mission was to help students take control of their own learning.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So I was actually a part of the Take Control conference, and so TC's philosophy is that students should be empowered and have the ability to choose what they're learning about. And so the Take Control movement that we had was it was about being able to choose what subjects they want to do and do them in the order and at the speed that they're ready to do it. So I have always been really passionate about the environment. And so I did environmental science year 12 when I was in year 9. And so I was doing the GAT, which is the year 12 exam that you have to do, the general assessment test, when I was 14. And I had to do it, I actually had to do it 4 times throughout high school, because you have to do it again every year. Because I wanted to push myself ahead and I wanted to do things that I was passionate in. And so I wasn't doing year 9 and 10 biology because I was passionate about biology. I wanted to go ahead. And so because I did that, I got to do extra subjects and I got to put extra focus. And there are some things so I'm interested in maths, but I'm not brilliant at maths. So I got to take that at a normal speed. And there are some students so you can apply your learning path to yourself personally, not some averaged system that doesn't work, because people aren't average. We're diverse and different, and it's important to be able to specialize that. And once we found out as a school how easy that is, it was great that we could make that happen. So yeah.
Talia, there's a question from Michelle around how do we encourage, like, you're very clearly a very self-directed, committed, passionate, motivated young person. What about those that aren't? Like, how do we help? Because I remember that talk on purpose course, there were some people in the course that weren't like that. You know, there was a young girl with autism who'd never done a public talk before, who stood up and shared that about the superpowers of people with autism. And so, yeah, so like different people have different motivations. How do we encourage people that are not as driven perhaps as you?
Well, I think everyone's got their own skill sets, and everyone ends up being interested in something, whether that's a passion for toy trains or Pokemon or saving the planet. Everyone has something they're interested in. And so it's being able to apply that interest. And that's why the Ikigai model is so important, is because you can say, well, these are my interests, but I can't be paid easily for being interested in Pokemon, but I could find a way to apply that or incorporate it somehow. I think that I think that everyone has something they're interested in, and maybe they don't have that confidence or experience to go and speak to hundreds of people about it. But I think that applying this model has its purpose and its place for everyone, and especially youth of today, when there's such a rush to decide what you are going to be and what your purpose is. It's being able to have a process in which you can apply that and reflect upon that, I think, is really important. So I'm just going to recheck the question to see that I've answered it properly. But yeah, so if you're not focused on leadership, purpose doesn't only have to be leadership. So my original talk was about leadership, and my contention was age is no barrier to success. But that's not the vocation and purpose that I've chosen. I'm going to work in education and conservation. And yeah, and so I think as long as kids can reflect and see that purpose is a dynamic and changing thing that applies to everyone, it doesn't need to be leadership. Yeah.
And look, you know, I always say it's about curiosity. I think a self-directed learning is really what it's about. If a young person or anyone of any age at that matter has a growth mindset and a willingness to learn whatever it is, then they can become brilliant at what they do. And, you know, I use this example, if you were passionate about baking, and so if you're a really good baker and you were passionate about healthy, nutritious food, and you observed that the elderly in your community are not being fed that well, or your parents or your grandparents happen to be in aged care, and you notice that perhaps the food isn't that nutritious, how could you put those three things together and create something, pitch a project to the local council, or go and contact the CEO of the aged care service and ask if you can start baking healthy, nutritious food and deliver it, or something like that. Like, I think it's about switching the narrative. And very often today, you know, I know a lot of young people, you know, a friend of mine, her son has applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and is extremely disenfranchised and is worried that he's just not going to get a job. But if it's about, rather than reacting to what's out there in the marketplace, it's about creating something that taps into all those four circles and finding the right support and mentorship to actually make that happen. And in my observations, it's that young people need 5 things. They need self-belief that they can do it. They need a growth mindset, as Carol Dweck would say, rather than a fixed mindset. So they need the self-belief. The second thing they need is a parent that is inquisitive, not directive. A parent who can ask the good questions, and more importantly, a parent who is actually a role model. If kids see their parents failing and trying new things and experimenting and trying the best they can to follow their purpose, then they're going to actually do that. The third thing is that teachers, if they can actually encourage students to have self-directed learning, to be more focused on helping them learn, not necessarily the curriculum, but learn whatever it is they want to learn outside of school. So teachers can play a role. The other one is their peers. Kids will not pursue their purpose if their peers are not supportive of it or encouraging. You know, purpose actually needs to be cool, I think. And if you have friends that are also on the same journey as you or want to support your projects, that's really important. And the last one is that kids need a mentor that's outside of that formal structure. So it's outside of school, it's outside of their parents, it's outside of their peer structure. If we can help young people find a mentor who's been there and done that, or has just pursued their own purpose, that's the kind of framework, and I call it a cheer squad. If we can give young people help them create their own cheer squad, then they're going to be able to feel like they can pursue their purpose. They can't do it on their own. I think that's really, really important, that it's actually a team project, but it has to be driven by a self-motivated young person. 4:42, we've got 18 minutes, Rhiannon, to do a task. Talia, thank you so much. We need to go on the circuit with this. What do you reckon?
I'd love that. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. So thank you, Talia. So Talia is going to stay on for the half hour at 5 o'clock as well. So if you've got any specific questions of her, please hang around. So let's just do a breakout group. So if everyone's got the Ikigai model, just have a think about it for yourself. And what I'd like to do is break you into groups of 3. Now, we've got 38 on the call, so I'm going to break us all into groups of 3. Share your own Ikigai, what you think about it. Maybe there's something in this discussion that's really stood out for you. So we're going to go into breakout groups. You have 2 minutes each to talk. Someone will time it, and we'll come back about...
Sorry, Carolyn. Should we give people a moment to actually have a little draw of it first before going into their breakout, just to like really reflect on it before sharing?
Yeah, okay, maybe that's a great idea. Maybe let's give you... So I have 50 questions that I ask people behind this model, by the way. So you know, it's a deep and lengthy exploration, but maybe just 2 minutes. Think about those circles and write a few words. Seeing we did make you get your pen and paper, right? A few words that might fit within each of those circles. So 2 minutes.
I think if we put it up on the screen as well, that would be awesome. Yeah. So Carolyn, could you please share that one again on the screen?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Carolyn, it's Michelle here. We've just got a couple of people who've joined late. Would you mind just recapping on what the exercise is? That would be great.
If you can, take a screenshot of this or draw this model on a piece of paper, and then ask yourself some questions to go with each of those circles and just write words. So with the what are you good at? What are my strengths and skills? Another good question is to ask, what do other people say that I'm good at? With the what you love circles is, you know, what do I love doing? What am I passionate about? Where do I lose track of all time? What the world needs. What do you want to fix in the world? There's one thing that really makes you angry or sad or that you'd really love to fix. And then the last thing is, what makes you a living now, but what could make you a living now? Now, don't get too worried about that circle right now, but it's kind of like, yeah, play with those answers to those questions. Actually, we're not going too bad on time. I did speak very fast. All right. So we'll put you into breakout rooms at the now. Of 3. How many?
Carolyn, before
Yeah.
you break out, can you just remind people what they'll do when they come back?
When they come back, they'll just regather and we'll close. So there won't be, unless we don't really have time for discussion. Is that what you're asking, Michelle? Sorry.
Yeah, just so people don't get lost, so they know what's going to happen, how long they'll be in there and when they come.
Well, 6 minutes. We'll put it into groups of 3. So 28 but divided. Oh, I'm trying to work out how many rooms there's going to be. Maybe we'll just put it into 10 groups.
Can I just check in? We have two people here, Angela and someone called Jamaica, who haven't gone into a group. Did you guys want to go into a group?
No, Angela's can't. She's lost her voice.
Oh, okay. And do we know who the other person is? Are they happy not being in a group? Carolyn, would you like me to pause recording while everyone's...
Yes, please.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right. So I reckon, would anyone feel like to share for 10, 20 seconds? Put your hand up if you would like to. Oh, I can see you on Beata. Hello.
Hello, I'll try and make it in one sentence. So basically we had 3 women from really different stages of life, and we realized that your purpose can evolve when you're really young before you have kids, or maybe it's something that happens later in life when your kids have grown up and moved out, if that's something you choose to do. And neither is more relevant than the other. Like, they both have their own wisdom and flow, and that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it was interesting to relate from those different life stages, but to see that we're all moving towards our purpose in our own timing.
Beautiful. Thanks, Beata. Deborah.
Yep, I spoke with Wayne and I really enjoyed it. We talked about how the model impacts on what we're currently doing with the people that we work for. And I love Wayne's analogy of, it's like a jigsaw building up the landscape. But I was emphasising that the people that I work with, sometimes you have to, it's your BYO, purpose, vision, mission and values. So you have to sometimes work, work that out before that you can actually bring it to the school. And because once you're at school, you're supposed to embrace the school's purpose, vision, mission. So it's about marrying the two.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Deborah. Any other comments? What do people think of the exercise of digging into Ikigai? Has anyone done it before, or any feedback on the model itself?
Yes, Carolyn. Carolyn.
Donna, hello.
Hello.
I've got 2 screens here and I'm flicking between the 2. Hello.
On, you changed my life. This model does work. This does. We had some interesting discussions, and I think what Talia brought up, the fact that Peter Hutton actually walked the talk, and the other thing was to have that focus in this difficult time to be able to manage. I think they're the 2 critical things for young people. Be the model and be the change, and find this alternative. For a lot of you teachers, I've got children that have gone through school, to find the alternative to my pathway must start in year 10, and then I'm going to university or I'm going to an apprenticeship. It's the other. The other is what this is about, and it does work.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone else? Mel.
Yeah, I'll say something. I guess one thing that that's coming up for me is a little voice inside that was like, I'm doing it. I am like that what you can be paid for. I think a long time ago, or for a long time there was this oh no, you can't be paid for your purpose. And it was just a really it was a joy. There was a sense of real gratitude filling that out and saying, actually, I am doing it. What I am paid for is all of those other circles.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's interesting.
Wonderful. And sometimes you don't. So sometimes the 2, what you're good at and what the world needs circles, are things we might do separate to our work or voluntarily. and that over time you can build them all into the one.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm mindful that it's 4:59. That was just a tiny taste test of an 8-week program. For those of you that would like to stay on and just have some more questions, Talia is going to stay on. We're really interested in the idea of thinking about, there is actually going to be a lesson guide too. I've actually produced a lesson guide to go with the Ikigai model that will be available to all of you, which we'll be sending out in about a week. So if you want to actually use that with young people or use it for yourself, but it's mainly a guide for teachers so that teachers can actually use it in an impromptu class just to start getting young people interested and exploring. So I'll talk to Rhiannon about that and how we can make that accessible to everybody. Is there anyone that would be interested in that lesson guide that they might use with students? Yeah, good. Okay, so we will send that out in due course. It's being designed as we speak. So for those that would like to stay on and have a discussion, please do stay on. I really want to thank you all very much for coming. It's been a super long journey for me teaching purpose, and I've been doing it a lot in the business world for the last 10 years, helping companies define their purpose, helping individuals and leaders define their purpose. But now is the time, I think, that we can start getting young people to talk about this at a much earlier age than having to wait and fall into an accidental career of 20 years in banking like I did and like many of us do. Not to say that that was wrong, but it's an opportunity to have a different kind of discussion with young people so they can feel empowered, so that they can create it. So if you have any questions for the next part, please post them. I have some questions that I can ask, but I want to thank you all so much. Thank you, NENA, for hosting, and Rhiannon for hosting this webinar. This is actually the first one I've done for young people. I've done many in the business world, and other than working with Talia, this is all new stuff. And I think the most important thing is that when we design this stuff, we actually co-design it with students, by students, for students, with students, so that when we build these ideas of purpose into their thinking and into their curriculum, that they feel they've had a chance to contribute to the creation of that. So it's their course created for them. It's just a framework to help them actually bring that to life. So thank you, everyone. Please reach out to me, email carolyn@carolyntate.co. Give me a call. I'm here to answer questions and see if I can be of service in any way, shape or form. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And if you want to stay on, stay on.
Would you like to put your email in the chat as well, Carolyn?
Yes, I will. I should have put it. I will. Can we send it out afterwards too?
Yep, I can do that.
Or not?
There's a couple of questions coming through.
Yeah.
So maybe Jamaica, would you like to come off mute and ask your question? Otherwise, I can ask it for you. Okay, so I'll ask that one. Jamaica asks, did I see somewhere that there is a 9-week course called Purpose Lab being offered?
Yes, that's for schools to run within schools. So it's not actually a public event. It's something that I'll be working with schools. I'd love to make it a public event, but at the moment it's going to be with schools for students. There was another.
There's a question for Talia from
Yes.
Claudette. Claudette, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So I'm doing my pre-service teacher, Masters of Teaching secondary degree at the moment. And I did a prac at a school here in Sydney. And I had seen Peter Hutton's TED Talk and thought it was just incredible. That's why I'm doing education. That's why I want to do teaching at a high school. And he watched it and he was inspired, but he said he wasn't as brave as Peter to make a transition to student-led learning. What would your advice be for that principal? What would you say I mean, it's a big question, but if you were to say it in like a testimonial or a Twitter, message, how would you convince him? Because I'm convinced it's the way to go.
Well, luckily, I may have been expecting this question and have written a small answer. So my advice to educators and parents and all role models for young people is that people often learn from example. And if they see that the people around them and the people that they look up to are leading their lives with purpose and goals, then they'll see the pattern and the benefits, and they'll see why they should adopt this kind of system. And I think it remains true for not only classroom teachers, but for the people in the school, like the principals, that if they are purposeful and driven, then it provides an excellent guide for the students, and as people, like a passion for them to be learners. So I think it might be helpful to remind him that he, as a principal, should be a role model for the students, and he should be guiding them and leading them in their education journey. And because they have this big fancy role at the top of the school, and the students should be looking up to them. I have both my parents are teachers, so I hear lots about principals. Yeah, I think that it's really important that they use their position to be role models for the students. And if he believes in Peter Hutton's philosophy and in the value of purpose and the value of the Ikigai model, if you show it to him, it's leading by example, and leading and showing students how they can use their purpose is really important. So I think that is good.
Brilliant. I think it's a brilliant response. I just feel like sometimes maybe principals don't know how to start because it's such a big move. And how do you actually start to incrementally hand over student-led learning or let students have more of a say? Because that's hopefully what I'm going to try to do when I go back as another pre-service stint. So yeah, I love it.
My suggestion would be to be a bit renegade and just run a class using Ikigai with the kids and get them to push the movement up. I think sometimes just going up rather than down. And then the other thing that I would say, I'm actually about to teach 26 principals to articulate their own personal purpose as a principal and a leader for their school. And I think very often there's a confusion between role, which is what you do, and purpose, which is why you do it. And so to help principals bring their own flavour of personality around what they love and what the world needs, and actually bring that into their role as a leader of the school. And so, yeah, so I think working, there is the what you do, but there is the why. And if we can help principals tap into that, then very often I would suspect that they'll be more open to more alternative ideas like Peter Hutton.
Or feeling empowered that they can, maybe they feel it's a systemic thing that they need to do what has always been done rather than put their flavour on it. And if they believe that this is possible, to actually start trialing trial and error, try just different things.
And there's a lot of stress and a lot of they're very busy and it's a very stressful job, particularly at the moment, and doing things like this just kind of might seem completely left of field. Carmel, you had a question. Thanks, Claudette.
It's actually not a question, Carolyn. I just wanted to support what Talia and Claudette have been talking about. I've worked in schools for a long time as a coach, and you're completely on it. It all happens slowly from the bottom up and from the top down. So if you can get that principal to be brave enough to surround himself with people who believe in the same purpose or similar purpose, as in the education becoming driven from the students, he surrounds himself with his other assistant principals and all his leadership over time. And then they try something out, they get the student body involved, and gradually the change will occur. You will never get any change in a system school if it's just one solo person trying to rattle their own, banner. It's about getting the people around you that believe what you believe and want to go there with you, and then including the student body as well, and just little bits at a time. So good on both of you. I can't wait to see this happen a bit more.
Thank you. Any other
Thanks,
comments?
Yeah, there was a couple of, so Jamaica was asking in response to your statement about running the purpose labs, they asked, what about homeschoolers? Like, is it going to be available for people who homeschool?
I mean, we're very much in the initial exploratory stages. So, look, I would have a vision that there's a whole purpose course curriculum that's available online and in person for any young person to do. If their school doesn't support this work, then the vision would be that it could be available. There are so many alternative schools. I've just learned about Zero Curriculum. I learned about Think Global School. There's Green School. There's also something called the Future Schools Alliance, which Peter Hutton started. So if any of you are interested in exploring that, but I can't actually, right at this point, it's to actually get a program into schools and pilot it with 12 young people and actually get them to co-design it and create it. So I'm very, very much in the initial stages, and I don't want to presume that I know what a school will want or not want and how they fit it into a curriculum, or if it's opt-in or if it's after school, or like, to me, it's about finding a couple of schools that actually believe in this work and co-creating something with them that makes it really powerful for that particular school and their students.
Thank you. And Jess joined a little late and said, so from what I can tell, this Zoom has primarily based around this model, so the Ikigai model, and using it or helping others to use it to find their purpose. Is that right? / could someone please do a wee recap? So I think
else like to recap for Jess.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? You knew I'd pick you, didn't you?
I was just waiting for that, Carolyn. Thank you so much.
Matt was involved in the Talk on Purpose course that we did with Talia 5 years ago. So he and I have worked very closely for a long time on purpose. So he's got something to say, I'm sure.
Oh, well, always. But no, look, it's been really fantastic to hear, Talia in particular, and see the evolution of what what I had the privilege of being involved in some small way 5 years ago at Templestowe, and know, Peter Hutton and the work he's done since with the Future Schools Alliance. And so, yeah, look, I mean, I really enjoyed being a part of the conversation today. I think to answer the question, I don't know how you do a wee recap of everything we've covered, but yeah, look, I think the Ikigai model is it's a really galvanizing force. And I think, Carolyn's done an amazing job of making it accessible to people in a whole range of fields, including myself. That was really how I started working with Carolyn 7 years ago, I think, was working on an Ikigai model outside of the schools context. But yeah, I think the learning guide that you're putting out now is probably going to be the sort of the learning, I think, is it a learning guide that you're going to be sending out?
It's just a lesson guide on how to use
that's
the
right.
Ikigai.
I think that's going to be, even if you're not a teacher, I think that's going to be a really good way to access the Ikigai and I guess tap into what we've covered today. But I think it's one of those models that just really strikes you when you see it, and I think we can all find a way to, as Talia said, we can all find something that interests us, and we can all help someone else find something that interests them using that model. I use it often with people in different contexts, and I think it's a really good conversation starter. So anyone should pick it up.
Thank you. And the thing with the Purpose Labs over the 8 weeks is that really it's about helping them identify a project that they could test and prototype and experiment with. And so we learn best by doing. So it's really about them helping young people feel empowered to create a project and then create the cheer squad that they need to help them test that project. So there's kind of like the outcome is to start a project, find a mentor, and to kick some goals to do something and achieve something. Because in all of my experience, I only found out that I loved writing by actually writing books and publishing them. And then when I did one, it was like, I'm going to do another one and another one and another one. So it's like building blocks. And I think the idea of identifying a purpose project and actually working on it is the most important thing, because we can dream and think about it for hours and years even and do nothing about it. But it is about picking something and having a go, I guess. Any other questions or comments?
There was a question from Beta. Would you like to come off mute and ask that?
Yeah, sure. Carolyn, I just wanted to ask if there's going to be a hub or a platform or a website that we could access to keep up to date with the Purpose Labs, because I'd love to hear about what all the different students are doing and creating. Yeah.
I think that's a really good question. And the answer at this point is not at this point. But I'd be very open to exploring how we do that.
Yeah, it could be great to even hear directly from them about their projects and share that, I don't know, social media or some sort of platform that
a purpose
educators
hub
or
where
other
kids
schools could access.
record a short story and load it up on a platform.
That'd be great, yeah.
TikTok for purpose.
That sounds good.
Another thing that we would really love is to start, the NENA Youth Hub is very new, but we would like to start connecting young people into this space, and that's an opportunity to bring young people together from across the country and also share maybe initiatives that they're involved in or ideas that they have for moving to a new economy. So that's another space that young people can connect to, and whether that's we can run future purpose things through NENA as well. There's a lot of potential.
Talia, her talk, we have got a YouTube channel, and her talk from when she was 12 is still up on that YouTube channel, and there's all the young people are. And YouTube's a really good way to start sharing talks as well. So yeah, leave it with me as an idea to work on. Any other comments or questions?
I think that might be about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll reach out to you, Claudette, for a conversation. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that it'll just take like a couple of schools to go to, and I also think that for a school now moving forward, if they have some sort of curriculum that is centered on purpose, it's going to differentiate them as a school. It's going to be a school that parents are going to want to send their kids to. So I feel like for many schools, it could actually make a difference. It's a bit like Montessori. Schools that like Templestowe College has a stream of Montessori now, so it caters to a broad range of kids and their learning needs, and I think schools that can now cater to children with different needs and different interests and different passions, then that's going to be what will make the school of the future. So I think some flexibility in what we teach, how we teach it, when we teach, and something that's fantastic at Templestowe College is that a year 9 student could be studying the same maths as a year 12 student or a year 11 student. So it's about designing the learning for the young, for each individual. Okay, well, I think we might leave it at that. Please do reach out, either email me. I think Rhiannon will, if we can send an email, I'll send out my contact details as a post email. I will send everyone a lesson plan when it's designed, just waiting on my designer. And please do reach out if you want to have a conversation. Sorry, there's one. What about Sam's question? I think there is a duty of care for anyone being introduced to climate issues, any experience in handling the anxiety that can arise. Yeah, that's a very big question, which, you know, personally, I don't have experience in handling, but I suspect working with schools who now have pastoral care psychologists and support people, I do acknowledge that that is a very, very big and real thing. I think parents are not equipped to answer those questions with their young people, as well as the schools and teachers, and it's a really important conversation to have. Talia, maybe you could comment on that in your experience.
So the reason we were talking about, because Sam, your earlier question was asking about the connection. So we were talking about having a purpose can help with those feelings of anxiety, especially climate anxiety, if your purpose is climate related and going to battle those problems. And yeah, I really struggled, and a lot of my cohort struggled throughout high school. And so one of the ways that we could combat that is to speak out about it. But because so many people see climate still as a political problem, the school, the admin level, was hesitant to speak on it. So when when school strikes were happening, I was putting posters up all around the school, and I was sending out emails to the whole school. And so the teacher said, we won't stop you, but we can't condone it because it's a government strike, it's a school strike. They can't, I understand that. I understand why they can't condone that. But it is tricky, because on some levels, climate justice and injustice is seen as politics. And so yeah, so I just graduated high school last year, and it isn't being spoken about as because now going to university, people are talking about it as climate trauma. People are devastated by what's happening to the planet, and it affects people so severely that it's traumatizing, whereas I haven't experienced it being spoken that way in high school yet. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there to bridge that gap, because it needs to be spoken about and addressed more, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, mental health is a massive issue, and with COVID as well, there's just yeah, it's an endless big issue and discussion. And I think helping young people discover something that they can practically do within their community that is close to home. It's one thing to march in all the strikes and to stand up and have a voice, but it's another thing to find a local project and make a contribution to that. I don't think kids need to feel like they should be single-handedly trying to fix these things, but there are many, many, many local projects everywhere that young people can be actively involved in order to, one, you know, do something that's meaningful, but two, that is of consequence to the environment within their local area. So I think that concept of community and local projects and what can be done locally is a really important discussion to have. And it does definitely help with resilience and anxiety. I've seen it in many young people. But yeah, really, really good thoughtful questions that are endlessly unanswered by our leaders, sadly, but there's so many good people on the ground doing work that we're learning about every single day. All right, well, I think we might leave it there. It's time to start cooking dinner, and thinking more about Ikigai. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you so much, Talia, for sharing your ideas and your wisdom. Hopefully we can go on a roadshow and gather kids from all over Australia and have them all standing on stage talking about their purpose and inspiring others, because I think that's a real big part of it is young people role modeling for other young people as well. Like, we can talk about adults role modeling, but we need a lot more young people role modeling as well. So yeah, TikTok for purpose. Thanks for that idea, Matt. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, Rhiannon, for hosting.
Thanks, Carolyn. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
So good.
And the recording will be available soon as well. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye.
Donna, you're still there.
I'm still there. That was great.
Yeah. What would you change?
I think it's only a short time, isn't it? A lot of people really got going. But it's this braveness thing. I think there's a lot of people, they're caught up in the COVID thing, very much in the anxiety in the COVID, and looking for solutions. And is this going to be the solution to stop the anxiety? It's not about that. But yeah, I mean, I think this is great. You've got out to a wide audience to start that conversation. But, you know, I went to a talk 20 years ago and nothing's changed, you know, about self-directed learning. And, you know, it is the principal and the leader, you know, that. So what's, you know, these 26 that you're going to.
So it's with Independent Schools Victoria, and I'm teaching 26 principals, their purpose, and how to write their purpose statement and deliver a 3-minute story.
Right. Great. Because
that's the start.
Yeah, as Talia said, you know, Peter Hutton, and I know, you know, Peter Hutton, and then, you know, I had a young principal too, and they absolutely changed my life. So they are the keys. And the roadshow. We've got to get someone to support you and Talia on the road. That's it. Get the kids out there. Get the bus. Get the whatever.
Collect the kids along the way.
Yeah, or the little fish and chip van that that cricketer from England used to do, and they go out and just cook fish and chips. That little green van.
Yeah, look, I think that the first thing, Donna, is for me to get a pilot of this course in a school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I had an idea of getting a couple of students, so 12 students from 6 different schools, two students per school, and bring them together and actually help them work with them to co-design this. Because I don't propose to know the answer. Like, I think it's arrogant to say, I'm going to come and teach you this.
Yeah, no, and the kids don't want that.
And they don't want it.
No.
And they want to do things that are, so to get someone like Talia in a room,
absolutely,
and 11 other young kids who will design it with me. And I would just I'm just providing the scaffolding or the kind of structure for them. Yeah. So that they can create this.
You be the guide beside, and they're out on the stage. I think that's relatable to the kids. And once the kids say, we need this, and a bit of pressure, but it's got to be, you've got to have the principal, but you've got to have those kids so that the kids can go, I can actually, that is achievable for me. You know, you think back to Emma. You think back to Emma when we had that discussion, who didn't know what purpose was about. I hope she jumped on today.
And look, I think I think the thing is that there's still education around purpose, what it is, you know, that it is possible, that you can create there's still quite a bit of education to be done. It's pretty hard to do a 1 hour session on something as deep as Ikigai and explain purpose and all of that. So I did the best I could within the limited time.
No, that was good. I think they sort of got it. You know, it is, you know, it's probably hard because I've known it for 6 years or more, but for something that's just introduced. Anything needs practice, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's why you do it in a more fun sort of way with young people in the room talking about it. A webinar is very hard when you've got, 40 people who you don't really know what their background is or what their understanding is already of purpose and so on. So I think having 12 young people together and talking about things in conversation rather than teaching mode, it'll be vastly different to what we've just done. And I just think if I could get 12 kids that say, you know what, I really want to do this, then it will just fly. Word will get around and these kids will start talking about it and so on. So that's still on the cards.
Still trying to get that one school with 12 kids to commit it. Yeah.
Or 6 schools with 2 kids who will. Yeah. So I had an idea of getting just local schools around where I am and getting 2 kids from each. And I've talked to Fitzroy School High. I've tried to get into Collingwood College. I've had a conversation with the guy at Fitzroy High who does career counselling. So I'm just doing more of these things. So if a school asks me to come and do a webinar like this with their students, then I'll just do that too, if they want me to do a 1 hour. And I thought, well, if I did this lesson guide, I can flick that out to everybody and they can run their own little class. Like as far as it's really just about getting people to start having discussions about it,
But we want to see the projects, that's the thing.
Yeah, I know. But
talk about all the time. It's actually doing a project. We're finding the same thing with farming and even, other people talking with, you can listen and you can get all this information, but then to actually go and try and test it and then put yourself out there but that's the key is being, that's the point of difference too, I think, is project-based now.
Yeah. And they need to get that project very quickly. So one of the things, I've been invited to have a conversation with Youth Activating Youth, which is a group, a not-for-profit, who has a lot of, it's a multicultural organisation, not-for-profit, that deals directly with young people, particularly in disadvantaged groups like the young Sudanese groups and those groups where there's a lot of strife and a lot of public misperception and stuff. And so I've been invited to talk to them about whether I might start by doing the purpose thing and helping them identify a project they can lead. For me, it's just doing all the feelers at the moment. And
that's tiring for you though. We just need someone who's.
I know. I just need one school with 12 kids that says, "Yep, let's give this a crack," and then I reckon anything